everyone. Keep your spine erect, chin away from your chest, eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye, the Jyotishmati, the light of awareness within. Take a deep breath and exhale. Let's begin today's session with the opening chant. Follow along. Asatoma Satgamaya. Om Asatoma Satgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everybody for the 10Y's weekly satsang. And it's been a long time since we did our regular satsangs. We've been doing most of the special events and yoga retreats and celebrating different occasions. Starting today, we wanted to resume our regular classes, the morning, Saturday and Sunday, the morning yoga classes, and also Saturday evening, our regular satsang, where we explore the different aspects of Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad-Gita, Advaita, and also some of the modern frameworks. Then explore them in the context of modern life, or how we could use some of this knowledge to build excellence in our daily lives, for ourselves and for the people around us. So what we're going to do today is explore some of the key essence of Bhagavad-Gita foundations, and explore different topics, such as what is Dharma, the Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, and then we culminate into Bhakti Yoga. And then we'll also try to integrate it with some of the knowledge of the yogic essence and some of the modern frameworks. So today's focus is to talk about the Bhagavad-Gita, the essence and the grand stage the Bhagavad-Gita sets up, that we could see our life on the very grand scale. So we call this as Dharma Yoga. So without much further ado, let me jump right in. Let me share my screen. Savita Garu, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Excellent. So again, the topic for today that we're going to explore and inquire about is Dharma Yoga. What is Dharma? The right action. And we try to look at it from many different facets, and sometimes I refer to as the 360-degree view of Dharma, so that we can actually reflect our own daily life, what we do at home and schools and at work and different aspects of the community, and try to look at it and reflect it from the different facets. And then hopefully, ultimately, it's all about how do we create excellence for ourselves and for the people around us. And before we begin, let's start today's session with Dhyana Shloka from Bhagavad-Gita. If you know it, please follow along. Partaya pratibodhitam bhagavata narayanena swayam vyasena grahitam purana muninam madhye mahabharatam advaitaamritavarshini bhagavatim astadashadhyayini Amba tvam anusandadami Bhagavad-Gita bhavadveshini Bhagavad-Gita bhavadveshini. Bhagavad-Gita is considered to be the essence of all Upanishads, the Vedanta. And Bhagavad-Gita shines light on some of the key aspects of life, the key fundamental questions. And again, we're going to look into some of the uniqueness about Bhagavad-Gita compared to some of the other sacred texts that we look at, whether it's Yoga Sutra and other things. Bhagavad-Gita is perhaps the most comprehensive text that provides answers and the keys to all aspects of our inquiry, not just about who am I, but all aspects of the inquiry about our life. And as always, whatever I share is the blessing, that I was offered by my guru, Dr. Sriram Sarvottamji and Ekaji from Eka School of Yoga. Anything that I share is the foundation, the essence is blessed to me by Sriramji. So the key topics, in the exploration of Dharma 360, the first one is we're going to look at the stage, our life, the where are we situated in this grand, the cosmic universe. And then we're going to start inquiring about the who and the why. Who am I and why am I here? And then the Dharma Sankara, the dilemma often that we are faced with in dealing with different situations, like whether in the different roles that we perform, whether as a parent, as a child, or as an employee, or as a boss, or as a community leader, or a part of your own passion. We're all situated in different roles in the context of life. And then oftentimes we get into a situation of, the sankata, the Dharma Sankara, which one is the right way? Because we're always presented with, different dimensions of Dharma that all seems to be right, the plurality of truths, the plurality of the truths. So we're going to inquire about the different situations. And in fact, the Dharma Sankara, that sets the stage for the entire Bhagavad-Gita. And then we're going to explore in this dilemma, then we start looking into in these situations of conflicting truths, then what is the right mode of action? What is the right Dharma that we can take? And then we're going to look at the types of Dharma, from many different texts, Sanatana Dharma, Swadharma, Raja Dharma, Kula Dharma, Pravritti Dharma, Nivritti Dharma. And then we're also going to end with, some of the things like, Dharma and, the context of Dharma and the time and the birth. And then the last one is a call to action for each one of us, how we can be the guardians of Dharma for ourselves and for the world around us. So these are some of the topics that we're going to inquire. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the flow. If there are any questions, and please feel free to interrupt. But what we'll try to do is we'll try to keep the questions kind of focused. And then in the end, if there are more inquiry, we can actually extend more. So again, we're probably not able to cover each one of them today. We'll try to at least get to some of the key topics, and we'll continue in the following sessions. Now let's look at the grand stage where this Bhagavad-Gita is revealed. And this is the Kurukshetra setting. It starts with the first verse of the Gita. The Gita. And this is where the Dhritarashtra Vacha. And let me first recite the verse. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kimakurvata sanjaya. And this is how the stage is set. And let's start investigating this verse. So number one, the different roles that we see. Dhritarashtra is the blind father. The blind is both metaphorical and also the physical. And the blind father is asking Sanjaya, who has the clairvoyance vision, who has the vision to see everything that is happening in the battlefield as it is, whereas the Dhritarashtra is a blind. Sanjaya is actually relaying the entire stage of what's happening in the Kurukshetra, the epic battle between supposed to be Dharma versus Adharma, Dharma versus Adharma, the battle between what is right and wrong. So the roles that we see in the first verse are the three roles that we see here. One is Dhritarashtra, the second one is Sanjaya, and then it also refers to Samaveva Yuyutsaha, the soldiers who are all excited to fight this epic battle. And then it also reflects on Mamakaha. Mamakaha, Dhritarashtra says, those that are mine. He's referring to his own sons and the Kauravas, Mamakaha. Mamakaha is derived from the word Mamakara. He's referring to those that are mine. And then he's also referring to Pandavas Chaiva, the children of the Pandu. So when we start looking at this verse from many different angles, we can actually look at it from the different roles. Dhritarashtra is one who is biased, who is caught up in Mamakara, which is he's already saying who is mine and who is not. It's the blind, the blind king who have a biased love and anuraga Mamakara for his own sons. And then Sanjaya, on the other hand, is somebody who is neutral, who is like a witness, who is representing the truth, who is unbiased, who just looks at the things the way they are. And that's the reason Sanjaya has this blessed with the clairvoyance vision. And then there are soldiers. And these soldiers are simply performing their duty. They're simply performing their duty. They are representing one side or the other, and then they're just going and fighting the battle. And they don't have their own viveka. They don't have their own viveka, means their own discriminative perception to figure out, why am I fighting here? They're simply performing their role or a job simply. And then Kauravas, which is waging a fight, which is the reason why this entire battle is being waged. And then there are Pandavas who are fighting to fight for their own right. So again, look at it. This entire one shloka sets the stage for different roles that we often see amongst ourselves. Right. So this actually leads to an inquiry. Whenever we are actually looking at any life situation, we can even look at it from like, am I acting like a Dhritarashtra? Am I biased by my own Mamakara of this situation? Or am I acting like a Sanjaya, who is a very neutral witness, kind of reality, where I don't have any biases? Or am I actually acting like a Yujitsvaha or a simply soldier? I just perform my job and I don't really know what is happening. Or am I acting like the Kauravas or the Pandavas? So that's one way to inquire about this verse. And then the second, if you actually look at it, the first word of the entire Bhagavad-Gita consists of several slokas, starts with Dharma. Dharma is what is the right action, right thought, what is right, Dharma. And then the second word is Kshetri. Kshetri is Dharma Kshetri, the field of action that the battle is considered as supposed to be the battle for figuring out what is right. Dharma Kshetri, Kurukshetri, that place is known as Kurukshetri. So what Dhritarashtra is saying, in that place, in that battlefield of Dharma Kshetri, in that place of Kurukshetri, those soldiers, Samaveta Yuschavaha, those soldiers who are ready to fight the battle, and my own sons and Pandavas, what did they do? Akurvata, what did they do? Sanjaya is essentially the stage for the entire Bhagavad Gita. So in that battlefield, in that Kurukshetra, in the two fields of action, what did the soldiers, what did the Kauravas, and what did the Pandavas do? Is asking Sanjaya. And this is the stage that is in that epic battle. But if you were to project this, this is also applies to each one of us. In other words, in all our situations of life, what did we do or what are we doing is the question, is the inquiry that Bhagavad-Gita tries to answer. It also provides a template so that we can always lead into the right action and also resulting in excellence. So now let's investigate this a little bit more. So in life, in our own Kurukshetra, this entire life and the cosmos is also considered the epic battlefield. And in that battlefield, there are four existential questions. There are four existential questions that we always try to answer. The first one is, who am I? What is my identity? Who am I? And this defines most often what is the action that we are doing. Who am I? And this starts with, is it starting with the identity of my own body and the mind? Patanjali in Yoga Sutras defines this as avidya, asmita, or ahankara. There is so much of I, me, myself, ahankara, mamakara. So we have to inquire amongst ourselves. How am I identifying myself? Because this again, as we had seen in the previous sloka, if you approach it like, the identity like a Dhritarashtra, you actually take a different side of action. Your entire actions are guided by mamakara. And if you are take the role of Kaurava, you are going to operate it from ahankara and avidya. And then if you take the role of a Sanjaya, you operate it with equanimity. You may still participate on the battlefield, but you approach it with an equanimity. So that's the first question that we have to investigate. Where am I? What role am I performing? And then the second question is, where am I? And this is where Bhagavad-Gita extends far deeper beyond other texts. In other texts, most often, like for example, in Advaita and other things, we try to provide answers to who am I? Who am I? But according to Bhagavan Krishna and according to Bhagavad-Gita, who am I only answers part of the inquiry, only part of the inquiry. The critical part of the inquiry also talks about where am I situated? The field of action, the kshetra, is also extremely important. The kshetra is defined by our body and the mind. And our body and mind is a great field of action, and it changes every time. It's very dynamic. We are in different moods, we are in different shapes, and in the different chemistry that powers to us. The location, the time, and the context. And the context also defines a role. Who am I? And then what Bhagavad-Gita also answers is, then the next part of the inquiry is, why am I here? Who am I? Where am I? And then the third one is, why am I here? What is the reason why am I situated in this own context? Sometimes we may even feel helpless, which is like, why am I stuck here? But again, that is also part of an inquiry. Why? And then based on that, the actions will also guide you on, am I actually taking this action? Why am I here? Is it because am I trying to optimize the action for the benefit of me and mine, like in ahankara and mamakara, or is it in the benefit of and the welfare of the others? Or am I taking actions based on profit and loss statement, the chatter within the mind? And then the how. And then once you know the three fields of inquiry, who am I, where am I, why am I here, then Bhagavad-Gita provides answers on what is the right dharma, what do I do. But oftentimes when we are trying to do this, whenever we look at who am I, where am I, and why am I here, we often present ourselves in, sometimes incapacitated to figure out what is the right action. What is the right action? That is known as Dharma Sankata. Dharma Sankata. So we're going to investigate that Dharma Sankata or Dharma Sanchara, which is like, how can we take a harmonious action, even though it may not seem to be in harmonious to meet the needs of everybody that's around us, but yet we can actually follow the right dharma and just simply go forward with harmony, And this is the setting of Arjuna versus others. And we're going to investigate this a little bit more. Let me pause here for a little bit, and I want to see if there are any comments, thoughts, and on the stage and the four modes of inquiry that we're going to do with this Bhagavad-Gita Foundation.
I don't have any questions, Shane.
Oh, okay. So now, when Arjuna is presented in that epic battlefield, when he enters the center stage and he sees on both sides, on one side, he's fighting against his own teachers, the teachers and the gurus who imparted him all the great warrior skills and who taught him all the dharma and who raised him. And he's having to, in that stage, he's having to fight against them and kill them, and then enormous armies. And then he starts inquiring about what is the right thing. It almost feels like he's stuck between devil and the deep sea. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So that's when he is expressing his anguish and his sorrow and suffering to his guru, Krishna, Palguru Krishna, as follows. Nakangshe vijayam Krishna, nacharajam sukhanicha, kim no rajena govinda, kim bogar jivite mama, kim bogai jivite mama. What it means is, oh Krishna, I don't desire any victory or kingdom or the happiness or any goods that come out of the victory or the pleasures by defeating my enemies. What good is for all this when I'm having to fight my own people, when I'm having to kill my own people, all these soldiers? Why do I need this? He simply would want to give up everything. Give up fighting this battle, and simply wants to go and surrender to the mountains and then go do this. But the interesting thing here is Arjuna, in that entire epic battle, everybody is, as I said, Samaveta Yayushchavaha. There's so many people that are eager to fight the battle, but the only person who is seeking, who is faced with this dilemma in the Dharma Sankara, that's a true seeker. That's a true seeker. In fact, my Telugu lyricist guru Sirvanala says in one of the interviews, if somebody is contemplating on, should I do this or should I do this? Is it better this way or this way? When somebody is actually going through that level of inquiry with sincerity, with weighing all the positives, why should I do this? Which one is good? Which one is bad? Any person that is actually expressing this, he calls them as the right seeker, the right warrior. Because all the other people in the epic battle, nobody's actually going through that inquiry, going that seeker. They simply wanted to go through it. So this is the nature of the true seeker. And then the second thing that we could also say is, when Arjuna is actually making it at the periphery, it almost looks very logical. It looks very logical. It almost feels like this Arjuna is asking the right thing, right? Why fight even a battle? Why fight even a battle? Why he's saying I just don't want anything. I simply want to go to mountains and meditate. And why so much bloodshed and so on and so forth. So it almost feels like sattvic, or is it tamasic? Is it because of it doesn't have the right understanding of the right knowledge, or is it based on sattva? As an example, if you were to go look at it, for those people that come from the Indian subcontinent or the India, if you look at the Independence Day, many people who did not fight the British, they simply followed whatever is being given. They were simply leading a peaceful life, which they call as, we are very peaceful, we don't want to fight with anybody. But on the other hand, there are people who are restless. So people like Gandhi and Bhagat Singh and Rudramadevi or Jhansi Lakshmibai, and there's so many freedom fighters who continuously fought against the colonial empire in using different means. Like, for example, if you look at someone like Gandhi and other people who simply used very peaceful protests, or even folks like Martin Luther King, who did not keep quiet, who constantly waged a battle. Of course, their modalities are different, but they did not simply surrender. They simply did not surrender, thinking that they're very peaceful beings. In fact, that is not being in peace. That's tamas, that's darkness. So when the Arjuna is put into this dilemma of the Dharma Sankara, he's confused. He's confused on what is the rightful action. On one hand, it almost feels like going to the mountains and giving up his arms and not fighting. He might think that might be the better answer, better path that he should take. But he is, Krishna on the other hand, in the entire Bhagavad-Gita, this is all about, no, you have to go fight for your own right. Fight for your own right, or fight for the right dharma is what Krishna says as. Ramakant Garu, any thoughts that you would want to offer?
Yeah, well, just listening and observe. Wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's investigate this Dharma Sankata. Of course, we're talking about Kurukshetra, the big battle, but now let's try to bring that, let's try to project that Dharma Sankata that we are often faced in our daily life. So Dharma Sankata, and last time when we did the session, I believe Savita Garu introduced this concept of Dharma Sankata, where in the Kali Yuga, Dharma Sankata is always about the battle between Dharma and Dharma, Dharma versus Dharma. Because it's the plurality of the truths. It's the plurality of the truths. The people that are fighting on the Pandava side, the people that are fighting on the Kaurava side, they all seem to represent some form of Dharma, some form of truth. And as I was investigating this a little bit more, in fact, in the entire world, it's only a fight between truth versus truth. In fact, our famous opening prayer, when we talk about asatoma sadgamaya, that describes the truth, the journey is from untruth to truth. But as I'm actually investigating that a little bit more further, it almost feels like it's actually going from truth to truth. The epic battle is always between dharma versus dharma. It's somebody's truth versus other people's truth. It's a truth versus truth, or dharma versus dharma. Yet, the truth, you're going from a lower truth to a higher truth. A lower level of truth to the higher level of truth. You can even project it in the context of the different koshas. When you are operating a Dhanamaya kosha, the truth that represents at the gross level of physicality is driven by your physical, the physical apparatus. But as you start moving higher to the higher levels of existence, Pranamaya kosha, Manmaya kosha, Buddhimaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha, then you start getting more closer to an absolute truth, the higher level of truth. So when we are actually looking at any one of these battles, like some of the examples that I started looking into it, in my own life. As an example, one kshetri that we are often presented with in our own daily life, and where we are having to do this Dharma Sankata with parent versus child versus a partner in a relationship. And sometimes it's like one person's dharma seems to in fight with other person's dharma. And similarly, as we are witnessing around us right now, a big battle between Russia versus Ukraine, a nation versus nation, China versus United States, faith versus faith, an ideology of capitalism versus communism, and the different dharmas that we represent at work versus home, and the battle that we sometimes call as work-life balance, the interest of the home versus interest of the community versus the interest of the work, we versus environment versus economy. Today's economy is very much dependent on consumerism. The higher the customers or the users or the citizens consume, that country seems to be prosperous. But it's again the contradicting the dharma of the environmental excellence, the dharma of desire versus the dharma of service, the dharma of our passions versus the dharma of our responsibilities, and dharma of values. We're all caught up on many dimensions of Kurukshetras. And the interesting thing is, we are not shielded from any one of these battles that are happening in this entire cosmos. If we do not participate in some role, if we do not contribute and take sides and fight in the battle, something that seemed to be far distant, like for example, Russia versus Ukraine war, if you think that that is not our battle, we're actually adding to the injustice. Every battlefield that's happening in this entire cosmos is directly related to our own existence, and it's our own Kurukshetra. It's our own Kurukshetra. In fact, we're going to look at the broad definition of Kshetra in something. And in fact, if you look at the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and we're also going to look at that in the Karma Yoga, it talks about the role that we all perform in almost all contexts in this universe. Kruta, Karita, Anumodita. Either we are directly participating in the battlefield, the Kruta. Karita is we are indirectly being the reason for that battlefield. Or Anumodita, you're just being spectators. So what Patanjali actually says is, in all the battlefields that are set up in this entire universe, in whatever the role that we perform, Kruta, Karita, Anumodita, we directly bear the consequences. We directly bear the consequences. If we do not add to the, if you do not represent the right dharma, is what it actually talks about. Savita Garu, you have a question.
Yeah. With this knowledge, if you don't mind, if you can share your own personal experience in life where you had this Dharma Sankata, and how did you apply this, and what clarity you got by introspecting on the situation and your understanding of this concept. How did you apply that? Like, were you, is it the end result was in alignment with Dharma, or like, what was the feeling of, or how did you come out of it feeling or experiencing?
That's a very good inquiry. It's a very good inquiry. So let me actually get right into it. One thing that we could all relate to, and then I'll probably talk about two examples. One is a very familiar battlefield that we are all engaged in: parent versus child. A parent versus child. So in today's context, as an example, parents have certain elements of what they think is the right dharma for the children. Like, a very simple example of what you're supposed to eat. And the children have, based on how they're growing, and then they have their dharma at some point, is that we need to be independent. We need to make independent decisions. We do not want to be coached or taught by the parents, as an example. Right? So what happens is that always sets up as both of us seem to represent dharmas, of the right dharmas, coming from different contexts. So as a simple example in my own life, as an example, let's say with my younger one, where she wanted to go to college or what she wants to eat, I try to say, it's like, hey, you probably need to save some money, or go to a state school, or eat more vegetables. And whereas her thing is, no, I need to build my own independent life. I'll bet it's more money, and wants to go to out of state, and then she wants to do it. So if you look at it from a different aspect, we seem to be in conflict with each other. So now this is a very simple example, and I'm sure many of us are faced as parents. We kind of faced similar type of kurukshetras. But now the answer actually comes in. So how do you deal with this? On one hand, it actually seems crippling as a parent. It's sometimes like, man, why is this happening? Why are they hurting themselves? Why are they not seeing the truth? So my evolution has gone from prior to this knowledge or inquiry and experiential knowledge of the yoga and Bhagavad-Gita, I seem to be in more of suffering. I was in more suffering because things were not going according to what I thought was right. And I was getting more carried away with any negative outcomes that were happening. And I was so much in misery. By being a good citizen is exactly like a Dharma Sankara. And I was like, why, I'm trying to do the right thing, but the kids are hurting themselves, they're getting sick, and I was operating from the poverty mindset, and I was actually, it's like so much deep misery. Now, when I started using some of this knowledge, then try to at least move from a role of a witness and performing the role. So I actually go stand up and represent my dharma and the values and try to share with them, but I do not get carried away with my role. And then I switch out and I become a simple witness, because it's not rooted in mamakara or ahankara. You simply go represent yourself, stand your ground and represents the values, and then leave it up to them. And whatever the consequences happen, if they get into the suffering, you don't go become the suffering. You just simply go attend to the consequence and try to remedy the situation as much as allows. So that is kind of one example. So I started operating myself in more of the time where I have to become a subject, the time where I have to become an object, or more times where I'm actually simply being a witness. So when you're becoming a witness, that means you are actually maintaining a distance from your ahankara or mamakara, and you shield yourself, and then you try to navigate into this. So that's one kind of an example. Did that provide some clarity?
Yeah, but is there an example where there is no involvement of other person, but you yourself, within yourself, you can absolutely have the dualness of like you have a two path, both feels right, both feels dharma way of going, but you still have to choose, right? Absolutely. And both have different consequences. So, I mean, yeah. So with the individual self, without involvement of anything, see, not accepting anything the way it is itself is the beginning of the misery. But within yourself, certain times, it's not about acceptance, it's about the choice.
Yeah.
Actually, right? The choice also can create misery.
Yeah.
Like it's like having a buffet. That's also misery.
Actually, we'll actually explore this in the Dharma Yoga a little bit. We are the free choice making incidents. Now, let me actually make my own, the battlefield within me. How my mind actually puts me in different modes. As an example, I occasionally indulge. Indulge in sometimes, that could be excessive eating. Like, it could be as simple as, eating more sweets or eating more meal than what you need, because that's again a dharma. Or it could be as simple as, going to a party and drinking a glass of wine, right? And then there is, I'm just giving this as small microcosmic examples, but the mind actually, drives me in more ways where I know it's not the right thing for you to do. And I still proceed to doing some of those things. But the only thing that I think, sometimes I actually say is, before, when I was doing some of these things, I was unaware. I was engaging this from the lack of awareness. I was subconsciously doing it because I was programmed. And I was actually being I was being operated by, I was not in control of myself. So I was simply succumbing to the desires of my senses and my impressions and the conditioning. So I was simply just yielding to the universe. Today, there is some level of awareness. Even when I do bad things, I actually do it with awareness, knowing that it will have negative consequences, but I still end up doing. I drink a glass of wine. Sometimes I eat meat, knowing that for my context, they are not the right actions. But I investigate, and sometimes I actually write about myself. I laugh about my own frailty. And I actually have the awareness, or at least just progressing to build that awareness, where I know when I'm operating from my lower self, when I'm actually trying to operate from a higher self. My higher self is my witness. My lower self is the thing that is operated from my Annamaya Kosha or Manmaya Kosha and so on and so forth. But at least I'm actually trying to put some light. Is that a good thing? At least being an awareness is a good thing. I hope I can provide more light of awareness into everything that I do. But today, the bigger battle that I'm actually fighting is not even with my external thing, my child or my partner or my work, my community, my nation or anything. The bigger battle that I'm actually waging is within my own self. That's the biggest Kurukshetra. If I can actually be victorious in that battle, but I'm actually having to work very hard. Any thoughts? Does it make sense, or what I'm trying to reflect?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So the essential thing is, you asked the right question. Actually, we often project this Kurukshetra in the outside world, about what's happening in the world, what's happening in the inefficiency in the world, and so on and so forth. In fact, the greater inefficiency, and in fact, this morning, Ramakant Garu and we were talking, if you spot it, you got it. If you're seeing some level of adharma outside, it means that adharma is also there at some level within you. And we have to, the biggest Kurukshetra that we have to be victorious is the battle that is happening within us. And in fact, there's also metaphorical saying, I hope I get that thing. The chariot, the horses, and there is a thing where the horses of the chariot that Arjuna rides is your sensory thing, your mind. So they basically gallop, and take you in different directions in the battlefield. It's about how you build mastery of your own sensory and your own mind to establish equanimity, and to repose within your own self, to establish a mind of focus and harmony, is the essence of the entire Gita and the stuff. So that's what is the summary of Gita. What is the right action? What is the right action? The greatness of Bhagavad-Gita is, it starts with an inquiry of Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Kimakurvata Sanjaya. What did each one do in this grand life stage? And that's our own epic battle. We're all writing our own Kurukshetras, the Srini and Savita, Makant, and each one of us. And then the eternal Dharma, the essence of Bhagavad Gita, is captured in that one Eka Shloka. It goes like, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Pardo Dhanurdaraha, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutar, Dhruvanitir Matir Mama. It says, wherever there is Sri Krishna, the Yogeshwara, the supreme yogi, wherever there is the Krishna, the supreme yogi is there, and wherever there is a highly skilled warrior, highly skilled seeker and the warrior, the yogi, when that combination, wherever that is situated, there, Tatra Shri Vijayabhuti, the victory, the excellence, and the harmony results. And this is certain. This is the absolute truth. And the last word that the Bhagavad Gita ends is in mama. The first word is dharma, the last word is mama. So that is what is the essence. The mama dharma, what is my dharma? The my dharma is, now what is the deeper meaning of this? Krishna means a supreme yogi, means wherever there is inner peace, the inner peace, the devoid of any turbulence in the mind, any chatter, no vrittis, chitta vritti nirodha. Wherever there is an inner peace, the focused and harmonious mind. And with that focused and harmonious mind is situated for a highly skilled warrior, for a highly dynamic and skilled warrior. That Arjuna, who is willing to fight, when that combination comes in, that's when the excellence and the victory, the right dharma, the eternal dharma is established. And essentially, that's the purpose of our YEC. That's the purpose of YEC, to cultivate that inner peace and outer dynamism, that entrepreneurial mindset with the focused and harmonious mind, to take on all the inefficiencies within your one's own body and the mind, and around the world, the two kshetras. And that's when excellence results. That's when excellence results. This is the summary of Bhagavad Gita. So the Krishna, Arjuna, it's all within us. It's all within us. And it's a battlefield of overcoming our own, the chatter in the mind, our own sensory things, and establishing focus on the harmony. And with that, reposing in the self, then we go engage in the world. We go engage in the world with exuberance, with all the dynamism, with no fear, and go fight. And go fight. What are the battles that you want to fight? There are all these battlefields, like parent, child, school, work, community, nation, faith, passion, values. Engage. engage with focus and with harmony. That's one perspective, darshana, an interpretation of the core of Gita's essence. Let me pause here. This is, isn't it beautiful how the entire Bhagavad-Gita starts with one shloka, ends with another shloka, and how this entire thing is so crisply, concisely brings back into the essence of yoga. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. So, so with that thing, now let's inquire a little bit more into what is Dharma. And again, looking into this different context of the roles that we played in. Let's probably look at one or two more shlokas, and then we call it in. So the first one, when we look at what is Dharma from Manusmriti, Manusmriti defines Dharma as something that we all have a responsibility. In fact, we are very integral to establishing the right Dharma within us in all the world around us. And it goes something like this. Dharma eva hato hanti, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, tasmad dharmo nahantavyo, mano dharmo hato vidha hato vadiha. What it actually means is, dharma eva hato hanti. If we persecute the dharma, if we slay the dharma, then dharma slays you. If you mess with dharma, dharma gets you. Dharmo rakshati. If we protect the dharma, then the dharma protects us. And those people, therefore, tasmad, therefore, we always have to take a commitment to protect the dharma in all dimensions of life. In all the roles, kruta karita anumodita. If we become passive to where the adharma that's happening, some seemingly far remote. But what does the yoga and the Advaita says? Like, this is all nothing but just one. It's everything that's one. We all have to have an awareness. And that's what we often, in fact, the yoga is such a great technique. When we do the asana practice and the breath practice, we try to bring awareness to each and every cell in our body, every inch in our body. If your toes are not aligned properly, that inefficiency sometime is going to come back and get you a little later. So we try to bring awareness to every inch of the body, every inch of the universe, and then bring the awareness and then go deploy. But don't feel overwhelmed with everything. You have to operate it with I part, because we're just simply going and representing ourselves. There are no consequences, just represent, because we have a responsibility. We're given birth as a human to protect the dharma, to be the warrior. In fact, the difference between animals and others, the humans versus other species on the planet is, every other species are governed within the bounds of the nature. They basically are being coded into a certain program and they simply operate within. Humans are the only ones that are given the mind and the consciousness to transcend the prakriti, to own and establish samyama in the prakriti. We have to exercise the faculties, the greatest powers that are bestowed upon us in the birth of the human being. Otherwise, we can be born as another species. We don't have to do anything. We simply go enjoy the life. We're bounded by the laws of nature, and we don't go any exceptions. We simply are enjoyful, but that doesn't allow you to have liberation, to become one with the entire universe. Aham Brahmasmi. As the humans are given that potential to become one with this grandiose nature. And that's the reason why we are given this mind and all these greatest faculties. And the simple technique is to become chitta vritti nirodha, or using iPad, and then you become one with this Aham Brahmasmi. So we have to consciously, progressively try to raise the awareness of our own being, from every inch of our body, every inch of our mind, every thought, everything needs to be in operating of awareness, conscious beings. And then from there, project ourselves into the greatest stage of the world, and then simply go proceed in harmony. In harmony, but go fight. Go fight. So this is a great verse from Manusmriti, where it all invokes a call to action on each one of us. It's our responsibility as the Arjunas, not as the soldier, as the Arjuna, to be the seeker, to be the skilled warrior, to build our skills so that we take the responsibility to protect the right Dharma within each one of us in the world around us. On that note, let's adjourn for today. Let's adjourn for today, and then we'll continue the session in the follow-on classes. Were there any thoughts, comments to reflect?
It was wonderful training. It was a nice refresh of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
And my thoughts are, I agree. In one way, yes, we always are fighting, but honestly, the more we enjoy this rasa of the inward journey, honestly, the fight becomes milder and becomes more of an acting, or acting like fighting, and then slowly it turns into a relaxation, and then it turns into a poem, and then it turns to a painting, right? So agreed, definitely we can. So the mild, medium, spicy kind of flavors is what I'm saying. As we go inward and inward, everything sounds like a poem and poetry, because in spite of all the friction or the forces outside, every time it bounces back to me, to the understanding that, hey, you are coming from a limited perspective. So whenever there is a pressure, whenever there is a experience of fighting, immediately that awareness saying, you come from the newer paradigm, wear your glasses, or the chitta vritti nirodha, basically, right? That's all. So with that, back to you, Srinivas.
There is an interesting thing, actually, the way we talk about the inward journey. There is, again, this is something that I learned from my guru Siruvenalagaru. It's a good metaphor of Aditya Hridaya. When you actually go repose in yourself, the inner being, the light that you see, is actually, it's like you realize that you're nothing but the sun inside. Aditya Hridaya. Your inner heart, the core is like your sun. When you look at the sun is not a very, it's a radioactive material. It's just a high level of volcanic radiation. So in fact, the friction is what it actually says, the fundamental laws of the universe is gravity, is the friction. So what it actually says is, the essence of yoga or Aditya Hridayam or the Gita is, don't be alarmed by the friction. In fact, make friction be the very existential way of life. And in fact, bring it and own it and make it part of your heart, like the sun. And then from that radiative sun comes the sunlight. That sunlight is the source of energy for the entire solar system. Everything that we see is because of that, the prana, or the light that comes from the radiation. So the inward journey, when you go in, is essentially, is like, you are Ravihi. It just becomes, you become the sun and emit that radiance. So then when you can make that sun and the radiation as the beauty, as the poem and the song, and make that be the very nature of your life, then you become that Aditya Hridayam, and then you become the greatest yogi, and be playful, because you are untethered at some level. You are untethered. That becomes a witness. You're just observing, you're just going and doing anything. And then that's what we learned in Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam Tannirodha. Abhyasa Vairagyabhyam is, it's like Abhyasa is there. Tannirodha is Abhyasa. You just have to go and practice and engage. But with a distance of separation, right? Is one interpretation of the Aditya Hridayam, and how we can train ourselves, cultivate ourselves to make friction be the very existential part of our being. And that's essentially the truth. Only with the friction, you're able to make one step. Without friction, you cannot even make a step. And that's the cultivation of the entrepreneurial mindset and the moving forward. So again, that's a perspective, that's a darshana that we can all reflect. And again, all of this comes into, this is my experiential reality, and this is what we all have to inquire and then and make that be part of our own experiential reality. Any thoughts from Raghuji before we close?
Oh, just enjoying the session. So,
Okay.
been a busy week, a busy day. Oh, nice wind up, wind down, actually. Thank you.
Love it. So, and again, so great to resume our weekly sessions, and we had a wonderful session this morning, and we were able to do that from the outdoor deck, and hopefully, and you've always been the greatest satsang for me and for all of us. We are being the satsang for each other, sharing our journey, our inquiry in the direction of prachodhyat. There's a prachodhyat. So on that note, let's end today's session with the final chant. Take a deep breath and let's say Om 3 times. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We wish everybody to be happy. We wish everybody to be free of sorrow and illness. Wish everybody to see only auspicious things, that there will be peace everywhere. Wonderful thoughts. Of your palms, of your eyes. It's the right version. Divyam dadami te chakshu.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri.
Okay.
Thank you, Shri.
Yeah. I just did not know what is going to come out. I was working on some slides, and I was just having party with Savita Garu, Ramakant Garu, and everybody. Go. Good.
No, it was
Let's
wonderful.
enjoy this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.